Good evening. On my screen, I've got two people from Cyprus on either side, Nuno and Debbie. And I am in cold England here. Okay, so I'll have to talk to you and let people in at the same time because Paul is not joining me today. He had a week away and is not sort of fully back yet. So it'll be me and Nuno tonight with you. Welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Julia Budnik, and probably many of you have already attended this free Thursdays with SDS. But in any case, whether you've attended or not, I will ask you to type a few things in the chat box about yourself, where you are in the world, what is your profession, what is the setting you're working in. Have you been to SDS Thursdays before, or it is your first one? If it is your first one, welcome. And if it's not your first one, welcome back. Always very good to see you. We've missed 1 week. We had a sort of half-term break, and it feels like ages. It feels like I haven't seen you for ages. So I'm still letting people in, and hope that you will start. First time, Mia, welcome, well done, first message. And I hope you'll start typing because it is always very interesting for us. And I think it's also very interesting for other people who came today. And if it's their first time, it will be very useful for people to see where their colleagues are from, in what setting you're working, why are you here? And also let us know if you are using ACT in your therapeutic work, how familiar you are with acceptance and commitment therapy. Have you done any training on ACT before? All that information will be very helpful for us. And I'm also quite interested if you have some ideas, what would you like to hear, to know, to see on this SDS Thursdays. Also put your ideas in because I do read all your comments through and we try to incorporate your wishes. Yeah, I can see people say that they trained with Nuno, which is great. So yes, this Thursdays we've been running since April last year. And Nuno was one of the first people who responded to our call to come and talk to you for free. We don't pay presenters to present on these Thursdays. So everyone who comes here, they come out of goodness of their hearts. So Nuno was one of the first who presented at these Thursdays. And since then, probably a couple more we have done, haven't we, Nuno? So it's probably fourth appearance by Professor Nuno Ferreira on these Thursdays. I use ACT for chronic pain, says Nicoletta. That's fantastic. And I'll share my screen with you very briefly, just to let you know about the certificate in acceptance and commitment therapy, which SDS runs and which is a BPS approved certificate. There's not much sort of accredited or approved training on ACT. So I think our certificate is one of the very few training routes towards the approved accreditation in acceptance and commitment therapy. So I'll share my screen with you very briefly. Nuno, do you see waiting room?
I do, yes.
Yeah, can you admit people while I'm sharing the screen? Because I won't be, you just click admit all, yeah? Yeah, yep. Is it okay? Thank you very much for your help. Because when I share the screen, I won't be able to see very much. Okay, So yes, as always, you go on SDS website, and starting from the front page, you go to the menu button called Certificates and Diplomas. And you scroll down through all our exciting certificates, and you come to Certificate in Acceptance and Commitment Therapy Act. And the certificate currently includes 2-day introductory course. And 2-day introductory course we used to run in London very, very regularly. But since the pandemic, it is available online. It is presented by Nuno. It's an incredibly useful course. And if you want to train in ACT, you really need to start with that introductory course. And if you don't want to go any further, that might be enough for you just to understand how ACT works. But if you like it and you want to go further, we've got a 3-day in-depth course called ACT Practitioners Toolkit and How to Use It. So this is experiential course. We are not offering it as a recording or as an online training. You have to be in the room and do the course. When I say in the room, on Zoom, it's still on Zoom, but you have to be present during these 3 days and do all the exercises, because the course is full of experiential exercises. And we've done it probably 4 times now, haven't we, Nuno? And people are incredibly positive about this course. And then you do an online test and 80% pass mark and you receive your certificate. So we talk about accreditation, and this extended 3-day course takes you to level 2 of accreditation. But we've discussed with Nuno and we've decided that we will have a series of masterclasses for people who have already done this level 2 accreditation and they want to move on. And one of the masterclasses will be using ACT for working with chronic pain. And the course is coming at the end of, at the end of November. I've forgotten for a moment what months we were in. So yes, at the end of November, 29th of November, there will be Nuno's 2-hour masterclass, ACT for Managing Chronic Pain. And people ask me, do they have to complete a 3-day training on ACT to attend this masterclass? No, you don't, because Nuno will be talking about the toolkit, the approaches to chronic pain, sort of from the beginning. So for that specific issue, you can attend just that course and that should be sufficient. But for those who have already completed the introductory course and a 3-day course, this will take them to the next level of accreditation. I hope it makes sense. Okay, so this is what we are offering on ACT right now, and I think we are more or less everyone is here. Thank you very much, Nuno, for helping me, and I'll be very happy to pass the microphone to our presenter, Professor Nuno Ferreira, who is joining us from Cyprus. Don't believe that San Francisco bridge, he's not there, he's in sunny Cyprus, and he will tell you a bit more about ACT, using it for chronic pain, and about what to expect from the masterclass. Please, Nuno.
Okay. So thank you very much, Julia, for the introduction. So as you probably know already, so my name is Nuno Ferreira. I'm an associate professor of clinical and health psychology at the University of Nicosia in Cyprus. I've been involved with ACT for over a decade now. Started as a student of ACT, did my PhD on ACT, especially the applications of ACT for chronic illness and more specifically for diseases of gut-brain interaction. so in the area of psychogastroenterology. I've been fortunate enough to have done these trainings with SDS for a number of years now. I think it was going on six years that that we've been doing this together. We've been creating this ACT certificate program. So it's really nice to see that not only that program is advancing, but now that we have this sort of opportunity to do these sort of more focused master classes, I think it's a really great opportunity. So today it's really just sort of a glimpse into what's to come in terms of the masterclass that we're going to be doing at the end of the month. I've prepared a few slides, which I'm trying to find. Julie, I can't find the. There we go. Sorry. So I'll bring them up. Let me just. I need to make sure that we can share. Sorry, the thing keeps. Sorry, Julie, because the people to admit keeps popping up.
I'll lock the meeting so that will prevent. I'll let Anthony in and then I'll lock the meeting.
Yeah, because it was getting in the way of me being able to. Okay, I think that should hopefully no more messages of people coming in will pop up. So let's. I thought today just to use this space to do a bit more of a broader introduction and to sort of contextualize a bit of what we're going to be doing during the masterclass on ACT for chronic pain, and to also use this space as a way of getting some things out of the way, some basic terminology and models out of the way, so that when we do come to the masterclass, there's going to be sort of room to sort of get down and dirty into the nitty-gritty of the use of the model in the context of chronic pain. So I thought just to get some things out of the way, so it's basic terminology in terms of what do we mean by pain, what do we mean by chronic pain, and the International Association for the Study of Pain does provide some very sort of clear-cut definitions of what we mean by pain. So this sort of unpleasant sensory or emotional experience associated with or resembling that associated with an actual or potential tissue damage. It's a bit of a mouthful, but again, this sort of idea that pain is usually associated to some sort of nociception or some form of potential damage to tissue. Beyond pain, and pain, I mean, we all have experiences of pain. Pain is a common thing in our lives. Most of us will have experienced different forms of acute pain. Again, usually, you bang your foot on the table and you feel pain. So most pain tends to be sort of transitory in nature, and again, sort of a warning mechanism that our body has to sort of warn us, maybe stop doing that, so that you don't incur any more damage, or there's something important here, you better get it sorted as quickly as possible. But some people do sort of, for all sorts of different reasons, experience pain on a more frequent basis, and that's when we start sort of going into this sort of realm of chronic pain. And again, the IAS provides this sort of nice, neat definition. So any sort of the pain that persists past the normal healing time, and therefore it's not doing that sort of warning function anymore. So anything that recurs or lasts for more than 3 to 6 months could be considered to be in the realm of a form of chronic pain. Now, within chronic pain, I mean, we have both idiopathic and non-idiopathic. So some forms of chronic pain have a very distinct and well-known origin, especially, you know, pain that can be clearly traced to physiological processes. But there are also pain types of chronic pain which are of unknown origin, where again, there's no tissue damage that justifies the experience of pain. There's no necessary activation of the nociceptors. Sorry. Anyway, so of more unknown origin. Now, we know that chronic pain has quite a significant impact. First of all, we can see that sort of, you know, about 1 in 5 people in the population live with some form of chronic pain condition. About a third of them will be quite severe pain. There's a big use of prescribed medication, and I mean, nowadays with what we've learned from the opioid pandemic, there's a bit more of curbing of prescribed medication, but there's still, you know, use of non-prescribed medication as well in excessive forms. We know that chronic pain has an extremely high economic cost, whether it's direct cost in terms of loss of productivity to sort of more indirect costs to the economy, because people tend to sort of isolate and not do as many things, which then leads to another type of cost, which is the quality of life cost that's quite prevalent with chronic pain associated conditions. Now, when we talk about conditions, and again, a lot of these, as I said, have you know, very very well distinct pathways where we know where the chronic pain might have originated or what sort of system it's associated with. So we have, sorry, things that are associated with tissue trauma. So even things like surgeries, etc., could induce certain forms of chronic pain. We have musculoskeletal chronic pain, so all your arthritis and sort of more rheumatic type of diseases. We have also neurological forms of chronic pain, so anything from headaches to migraines to some more odd types of neurological pain, oncological pain, neuropathic, so things like neuropathy, commonly associated with some of our first world diseases like diabetes, or sort of lifestyle diseases like diabetes. Things like visceral pain, which is something that's very near and dear to my heart. So pain of, especially in the abdominal region and related to diseases that affect the digestive system, but also things like endometriosis could induce a form of chronic pain. And then we have sort of more psychogenic pain, for lack of a better term. So forms of pain where, again, these tend to be sort of closer to those sort of idiopathic or unknown origin types of pain. Now, early theories of pain were sort of purely biomedical. So, you know, pain was only caused by tissue damage. It was an autonomic, sort of an autonomic response to a stimulus. There was a single cause, so there was no real distinction in terms of, you know, what's, pain is pain. There's no sort of interpretation or different appraisals of pain. However, what we know and what was, started to be observed, especially in sort of late 19th century and early 20th century, was Things like, the existence of chronic pain that doesn't respond to treatment. So again, this pain that persists beyond the tissue damage. Also, individual variability on pain experience. So again, people who had undergone the same type of again, tissue damage, having completely different experiences of pain, where for some it might be an unbearable experience, for others it might be something quite mild. And things, again, especially with the advent of World War I, etc., more cases observed of things like phantom limb pain. So again, the existence of pain without the actual pain receptors. So those were very sort of curious observations where it started raising the questions. Okay, so if it's not just about the nociceptors, if it's not just a purely biological, physiological process, then we might need to consider other factors beyond the physiological factors. And especially throughout the 20th century, we have amassed quite a bit of research that has uncovered all of these factors that we know are now associated with pain. Anything from learning factors, behavioral factors, cognitive factors, emotional factors, all bear some influence in how people experience, how people manage pain. The other thing that has also sort of expanded and broadened in terms of our understanding of pain is that pain in itself is not many of the times the outcome of interest, and things like quality of life or disability or mental health sort of come associated with as outcomes that are of interest within the realm of pain. So talking about sort of models of trying to understand or intervene in pain, I think probably one of the most effective and well-known models would be the sort of the traditional cognitive behavioral model of pain, where we can sort of hypothesize or theorize around it. How the sort of the cascade of events in terms of how people manage pain or manage chronic pain can affect other aspects of their life. So we can see here sort of a very clear example using the traditional sort of hot cross bun model of CBT, where we have a hypothetical person who suffers from chronic pain in the situation where they're invited to go to the cinema. That might cause, for example, an immediate body reaction of muscle tension, associated with some form of anxiety and some sort of thoughts around, well, I'm going to have to sit for a long period. That's going to be quite painful. I don't think I can cope, which sort of then leads to this sort of behavior of making an excuse and avoiding the situation altogether. And we can see different processes occurring here. So things like, especially in the sort of the cognitive area, sort of hypervigilance and catastrophizing, or sort of rumination around certain type of rules, like I can't cope kind of thing, leading to this sort of avoidance. Now, the CBT model is, it's a very useful model, and again, the whole idea is, if we intervene, especially on the C and the B, if we can get behavior going, if we can get the thoughts to sort of change, if we can sort of get a different perspective cognitively with our clients, that then has a sort of an overall impact on their lives, and that's absolutely fine. It works brilliantly for many cases. The same thing with the fear avoidance model, which is basically just an extension of cognitive behavioral models, where basically, you know, how pain and chronic pain affects people's lives, or how it can sometimes develop, might come from this sort of fear avoidance, or this sort of idea that, you know, there might be some sort of injurious process, some sort of trauma, initial trauma that causes pain. And if the pain is dealt with sort of low fear, and sort of if the person is sort of able to go with the pain, sort of work with the pain, and sort of work towards recovery, that will sort of go away. However, if the pain experience is approached with sort of excessive negative affectivity, and again, this sort of aspect of catastrophizing, sort of magnifying the experience itself, or the potential damage provoked by the experience, that might lead to this sort of process of fear of pain, where people get stuck in this sort of loop of avoidance and trying to escape pain, and trying to escape any sort of activities associated that they've associated with pain, which usually leads to this sort of disuse of certain muscle groups, or disability, or even depression, which we also know that through cytokine mediated processes can actually exacerbate the experience of pain itself. So it becomes this sort of vicious circle of pain. Now, these models, and again, in terms of the target of treatment, is really, okay, if we can break the fear cycle, whether by managing the pain anxiety, or by managing the fears of pain, or by managing some of this avoidance, or by even addressing the catastrophizing. So again, in using a very CBT type of approach, that we can break this fear cycle, and we can get people back on the sort of path towards recovery. And again, these models are really useful, and they've been used for quite a number of years, with varying degrees of success, but overall quite successful. Now, what are some issues regarding these sort of more traditional models? And I'm including even the sort of the medical model that sort of just targets pain as an experience, as a physiological experience. Well, one of the things is that, especially in chronic pain, the symptoms, and the cardinal symptom of pain, is unlikely to change or disappear over time. And even if there is some way of approaching the symptom, again, by the use of medication, for example, usually comes with some secondary effects that might not be particularly appetizing for the person experiencing pain. And again, it sort of feeds into that sort of rationale that, in order for some improvement, in order for progress to occur, pain somehow needs to either reduce or go away in some form. Same thing with sort of the more thought or cognitive based approaches. Again, this idea that by challenging thoughts, or rationalizing that might make thoughts and feelings about pain change or disappear, that's unlikely to happen. And we know that from the experiences of our clients suffering from chronic pain. Those never really go away. The other thing is that a lot of the sort of the training tends to be very content focused and very situational in nature. So a lot of the techniques targeting these thoughts and feelings tend to be very sort of content dependent and very situational in nature. So a lot of the times clients struggle with sort of translating and carrying some of those techniques into new or different situations that haven't been trained or addressed before. And again, it comes back to that sort of idea that, somehow my thoughts or feelings need to change before my life can change. And that's really where sort of ACT comes as an alternative. And it comes as an alternative because it focuses more on suffering rather than pain. And what we mean by that, it's not exactly the physical, emotional, or cognitive content of the experience of pain that's really causing hardship in the person's life. It's more about how the person is responding to that particular experience, and especially when that sort of responding leads people off the track of things that are important for them, that are meaningful for them. So ACT sort of proposes as an antidote to this suffering the use of a more sort of psychologically flexible approach. By being able to act in accordance to one's values and things that are important for us, whilst also mindfully embracing these unwanted experiences instead of trying to control or get rid of these experiences. And for those of you familiarized with the ACT model already, this is going to sort of sound very, very familiar. So what does ACT really offer in the context of chronic pain? So one of the major shifts is that we have a new target in a way. So where what we're going to work with the clients is we're not going to work on reducing or eliminating the experience of pain itself. What we're going to work with is how people react to the experience of pain, especially when that reaction causes suffering. And again, we're talking about suffering as a larger picture. So other aspects of their life that might not even be directly related to their pain. The other thing that ACT offers is a new context. So most of the other approaches tend to have sort of, tend to be more limited to an immediate context of how people react to their pain, whilst ACT also incorporates some historical aspects, especially historical learning patterns that a person might have that might lead to particular types of rules or rigidity and inflexibility. The other thing that comes with ACT is the sort of the functional nature of the techniques that are being applied. So when we are working at this sort of functional contextual level, we're not so content dependent. For example, one of the things that you might do, in a sort of more cognitive approach might be, for example, if the person has particular imagery about their pain, you might try some sort of imagery rescripting. So that's very sort of content dependent. The techniques that we use in ACT tend to be sort of more context dependent and sort of more functional in nature. So primarily serving, so what's the function here, and is this going to get you closer to things that are meaningful and important for you? So that tends to make things a lot more adaptable to different contexts, and we notice that clients tend to be less stuck in terms of doing that sort of translation of the techniques that they have worked with in therapy and taking them to new settings, new situations, new contexts. The other thing that ACT does offer, in contrast with other approaches, is a more controllable metric of success. And I always emphasize the sort of metric of success, because when we talk about outcomes in ACT, the main outcome is always sort of are people engaging with things that are important with them? Are people engaging in values-based behavior? And that's a very sort of, objective and visible measure, and a lot more controllable, because it's under the direct volitional control of the client themselves, versus what some of the metrics that are more characteristic of sort of more cognitive-based approaches, which might involve, frequency of certain thoughts or intensity of certain thoughts, which are things that tend to be less controllable, because they tend to basically appear to the client, and the client doesn't really have much of a say of how intense that feeling or that thought is going to be, or how believable it's going to be, or so things like that tend to be, there's a bit sometimes of an illusion of control, but there's no experiential control over it. Things like values engagement, there is an experiential control. So ACT really sort of brings that to the fore. So how does ACT go about doing it? So the main thing is looking at control efforts in terms of reducing the occurrence of control efforts, especially when control efforts lead to people straying away from their values, and basically sort of getting them back on that valued path. And what we know tends to happen is that, with this sort of pattern of change, there is things like reduced disability, more engagement with value activities, even with the pain still being there, even sometimes with the same intensity of pain still being there. So I wanted to show you, I think this is it's a brilliant video by Professor Tamar Penkas that I think very clearly illustrates how ACT sees pain and pain interference in people's lives, and what ACT does to try and address that pain. So I'll leave you with Tamar's very, very wise words and very wise metaphor.
This is me. I could say that, this bit is me as a mum and this bit's me as a teacher, but either way, here I am, and I'm actually really attached to me and very invested in me, and we've been together for quite a while, and this is pain. And first it comes like this, I don't like that. I really don't like that. So I take it to a doctor or a nurse and I say, please, can you take away my pain? And they go, yeah, sure. There we go. Hang on, a little bit more. Or better now. Good as new. Yeah, there's me. But the pain comes back sometimes. Lots of it. Dollops of it. And it starts affecting all of me, because look, this is life happening. And after a while the pain affects my work and me as a mum, and me as a teacher, whatever. Here it is happening. Now this is me. I'm not as bright as I used to be. I can hardly recognize myself. I'm really not liking this. So I take her to the doctor and I say, please, can you take the pain away? And the doctor says, I can't. Now this is me, not bright, not happy. And I think, what can I do? And I think, I'll add more to my life, bits that have nothing to do with the pain, like all the things I do with the people I love. and things I love doing. I'm going to really invest. I'm going to add dollops of the bits of me that aren't anything to do with the pain, and here is life happening. Now this is me. I'm not as bright as I used to be, and I'll probably never be as bright. But I'm brighter, and look, I'm bigger.
So I hope you would join us on the 29th for the masterclass if you want to know more about how we get people to shine a bit brighter and to grow a bit more. Thank you for your attention today.
Thank you very much, Nuno. It was wonderful. That video, I think, put everyone in some sort of meditative state, and it was really, really wonderful. And you left on a cliffhanger because you said I can do all these things, but how exactly? But for that you have to come to the masterclass. And I wanted to say that the masterclass is only 2 hours. It will be available as a recording to those who booked on that masterclass. So even if you can't make it on the 29th of November, still book and you will receive a full recording for you to keep forever after that. And also it's not very expensive because it's only 2 hours masterclass. So I do hope that you will want to learn more. But for now, what I want to do is to invite you to ask questions. If you have questions, would be lovely if you could put your electronic hand up and probably ask a question verbally, but if not, you can type your questions in the chat box. At the moment, it's all thank you for the lovely presentation, which I share. So if you have any questions, I'll give you a couple of moments to type them up or to put your hand up and ask. I did put the links to the masterclass in the chat, and I think I probably still have it here. Yes, that's that. So that's the link, and yeah, still waiting for questions. There's a comment from Amanda. Have a client, 15-year-old client with chronic migraine, which affects every area of her life. Very difficult to hold on to hope for her.
Yeah, there's a very recent paper that was published by actually some colleagues of mine here in Cyprus, who did a trial of ACT for chronic migraine with very promising results. I'll see if I can find the reference, and I'm happy to share that. I know they have a protocol, and usually the protocols are available if you request the authors, or they might even be available on the Association for Contextual Behavioral Science website.
Well, if you find it, Nuno, what you can do is to send it to me, and I will incorporate it into the confirmation letter so people receive all the references in advance. I can see Monica wants to ask a question. Yeah. Monica, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Oh, hello, Professor Nuno. Thank you very much for the talk. I'm doing the diploma in CBT, so I'm very novice practitioner, but I'm still trying to master the you know, CBT approaches. One of them is the GAD, the Dugas model of GAD. And they sometimes, I mean, one of my clients, I suspect that has a problem with worry and suffer from chronic pain as well. So it can be sort of associated with anxiety and depression. What's the approach in ACT when clients have comorbidities like depression or anxiety?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, one of the things that ACT is very useful is because it's a transactional approach. So it really fits all of these experiences, and actually, it ends up incorporating them more seamlessly than other approaches, because it doesn't silo. You know, these are your anxieties, this is your worry, that's your pain, kind of thing. So it actually incorporates all of these into, you know, these are your experiences as a human being, and some of these experiences are negative. Some of these experiences are unwanted, like unwanted guests in your life. So they're you know, if we were using Tamer's you know, brilliant metaphor with a Play-Doh, you know, you could have like all sorts of different colors of Play-Doh, and they're all sort of piling up into who you are and sort of taking away some of that brightness. So ACT really sort of sees all of these as part of these things that, as human beings, we don't want these things in our lives, but sometimes they're just there, kind of thing. And again, the answer is, okay, so let's incorporate a bit more of brightness. Let's incorporate a bit more of light, so that these things don't, you know, don't have such a big impact on who I am, who I want to be, how do I want to stand towards life.
Thank you. Thank you. We've got another hand up from Tahsin. Tahsin?
Hi, can you hear me? Hi.
Yes.
Yeah, this is so I don't know if you noticed in the comments, I put that I have 3 children with chronic pain conditions. And I know ordinarily as therapists, we can't help our own, but if I did go on to do further in ACT, would I be able to use elements of it to be able to aid my own children?
I mean, yeah, I mean, one of the things that, I mean, ACT as a primarily behavioral approach, and an approach that we usually say, you know, we apply it to ourselves before we apply it with others. So there's a great element of modeling some of the processes ourselves in our lives, and that's sort of then, you know, obviously influencing people around us. So, you know, obviously there's loads of techniques that you can incorporate in your own life, even in terms of, you know, managing your own reaction to how you, you know, you approach your children, kind of thing, that's going to then translate in behaviors that they can model. They can model themselves to their own lives and to their own experience.
Okay, brilliant. And I know that a lot of, possibly some of their conditioning was due to my inadvertent parenting, probably. So would it address that as well?
Yeah, I mean, we know, for example, from research that, you know, for example, parents who tend to worry or catastrophize, you know, their children will then worry and catastrophize more often, which then, you know, gets them in that sort of fear avoidance type of cycle. So again, as I said, and we know that by addressing parents catastrophizing and worry, you know, by reducing that, that also has an impact, or by modeling sort of more adaptive or more workable strategies with the parents, that then has an impact with the children as well.
Brilliant. And is that even if they're now adults? So, I mean, like one of them's 21 and she's very she's reluctant to engage in psychotherapy of any kind, because she's had many years of counseling where it didn't work for her because she wasn't so open to it. So would it still be able to help her or someone like that?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, because ACT, I have to say, you know, ACT a lot of the times, we see people that have been through the ropes and have been sort of through the system in a way. So a lot of the times people who come to ACT come after, you know, they've tried all the medical options, they've tried all the non-medical options. You know, unfortunately, it's not yet a sort of a primary care type of approach. But the thing is that because it incorporates, like I said in the presentation, because it incorporates those historical learning aspects, it can help you know, people who are quite reluctant sort of notice, okay, how has my learning history been shaped to this point that I find myself being so reluctant in engaging in new things. So it takes that historical perspective into account as well.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you. There are many more questions, and I know that we need to let Professor Ferreira go, but what I will do, I will copy them and send them to you as an email, Nuno, and maybe some of them you will be able to address during the masterclass. I want to just read the last comment from Ruth, which I think is interesting, and it will be interesting to know your opinion. I think a strength may be the clinician's acceptance of the client pain, and that the approach does not promise to reduce pain. So many chronic pain sufferers are disillusioned with clinicians who make the patient feel that they are the problem when there is a failure to reduce pain. Any comment?
Again, I mean, it's because I mean, from an ACT approach, pain as a target, it's sort of removed from what we will be doing. So again, there's not real space for you know, any judgment on you know, whether, you know, the pain is improving or not in any way. At the same time, again, ACT has a very you know, it's an experiential approach, and an experiential approach from the perspective of the client. So all of the client's experiences are respected and informative towards the treatment itself. So you know, things like, you know, sometimes clinicians might be a bit more reluctant in whether understanding or believing some of the client's experiences in ACT as a sort of a radical stance that, you know, nobody knows the client better than the client themselves. So what they're reporting to us is their reality.
Thank you. And I think your answer actually answers quite a few questions about specific pains and whether it works with this pain or that pain. But I think that's what you're saying, that it's not so much about pain per se, it's about suffering associated with it, and so much broader. What I'll say is that I will copy the questions and send them to Nuno. I had questions here about whether you can contact Nuno. You can write to the office. It's info@sds-seminars.com, and we will forward your email to Nuno. We can't obviously give his contact details out, but you can write to the office and we can put you in touch. And before we finish, I just wanted to mention that we are meeting again next Thursday. On our website, if you go into the news, you can always find the calendar of these free Thursdays. So on 11th of November, there'll be Georgina Rush, addressing the issues of gender dysphoria and supporting young people with transgender identities. And that's part of our adolescent certificate. So that's next Thursday. And then on the 18th of November, it's with Paul Grantham on working with guilt, which is again part of our BPS approved certificate in working with common life challenges. Thank you very much, Nuno, for tonight. I think it was wonderful. And another thing I wanted to say, that Nuno will not be repeating everything he said tonight. So people who are booking for masterclass will receive the recording of this, will be able to watch it again and then progress further during the masterclass. So it was hopefully a worthwhile evening for all of you. Thank you very much, Nuno, and thank you all. You can unmute yourself, say goodbye and thanks, and hopefully we'll see you next Thursday. Bye now.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Right.